Jake never believed small towns could hide monsters until the night he drove into Black Hollow. Rain hammered against the windshield as thunder rolled across the empty highway. His GPS had died 30 miles back, his phone showed no signal, and the road ahead disappeared into thick fog. The only thing visible was an old wooden sign standing crooked beside the forest. Welcome to Black Hollow, population 327. Someone had painted another message underneath in dripping red letters. Don't stay after midnight. Jake laughed nervously and kept driving. He was a crime journalist from Chicago, the kind of man who trusted evidence more than ghost stories. But deep down, something about that sign made his stomach twist. The town appeared suddenly through the fog like it had been waiting for him. Old Victorian houses leaned toward the street like silent watchers. Every window was dark except for one flickering diner sign glowing at the end of the road. Jake parked outside the diner and stepped into the freezing rain. The bell above the door rang as he entered. Inside, every conversation stopped. 10 strangers turned to stare at him in complete silence. An old waitress slowly poured coffee into a cracked mug without taking her eyes off him. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Jake forced a smile. "Car trouble. I just need directions." The waitress glanced at the clock behind the counter. 11:07 p.m. Her face turned pale. "You need to leave before midnight." Before Jake could ask why, a loud crash exploded from the kitchen. Plates shattered. Someone screamed. Then silence. The cook stumbled out covered in blood, his eyes wide with terror. "It's back," he whispered before collapsing dead on the floor. Half his throat was missing. Panic erupted inside the diner. Chairs crashed backward as people rushed to lock doors and shut curtains. Jake stood frozen while thunder shook the building. "What the hell happened?" he shouted. The waitress grabbed his arm so hard her nails dug into his skin. "Listen carefully. At midnight nobody goes outside. Nobody looks into the woods. And if you hear knocking at your door," her voice trembled, "never answer it." The power suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the diner. People cried out in fear. Only lightning flashes illuminated terrified faces. Then came the sound. Knock, knock, knock. Slow and heavy. From the diner door. Everyone stopped breathing. Another knock echoed through the room. Jake's heartbeat thundered in his ears. A deep voice came from outside. "Open the door." One man near the window began shaking uncontrollably. "It knows he's here," he whispered. "It always comes for strangers." The knocking grew louder. Boom, boom, boom. The entire building shook. Jake looked through the glass door during a lightning flash and saw a giant figure standing in the rain. At least 7 feet tall. Its face hidden beneath a black hood. Water dripped from long pale fingers hanging at its sides. "Open the door," the voice repeated, now deeper, almost inhuman. The old waitress pulled a shotgun from under the counter. "Get away from the windows," she screamed. Suddenly the creature slammed against the door with terrifying force. Wood cracked. People screamed. Jake stumbled backward as another slam nearly ripped the door from its hinges. Then the church bells outside began ringing. Midnight. The creature froze. Silence filled the diner. Slowly the figure stepped backward into the rain and disappeared into the fog. Nobody moved for several seconds. Then the waitress whispered, "It's begun." Jake demanded answers, but nobody would explain anything. The townspeople acted terrified just speaking about the creature. Finally the waitress introduced herself as Martha and agreed to let Jake stay the night upstairs in the diner. "Leave at sunrise," she warned him. "Forget this town exists." But Jake's instincts as a journalist were already burning. Something horrible was happening in Black Hollow, and he needed to uncover the truth. Upstairs, the guest room looked untouched for decades. Dust covered the furniture. Old family photographs hung crooked on the walls. Jake noticed one picture showing the town from 50 years earlier. Every person in the photo stared at the camera with empty expressions. Standing in the background among the trees was the same tall hooded figure. A chill ran through him. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Jake woke to footsteps outside his room. Slow dragging footsteps. He held his breath. The footsteps stopped directly outside the door. Then came the knocking. Knock, knock, knock. His blood turned cold. Martha's warning echoed inside his head. "Never answer it." The voice outside sounded soft now, almost human. "Jake," he froze. "Jake, help me." It sounded like his younger brother Ethan, who had died years ago. Tears filled Jake's eyes. "Jake," the voice whispered again. "Please open the door." His hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. Then he noticed something beneath the door. Muddy water slowly spreading across the floorboards. And mixed in the water, blood. The voice suddenly changed. "No longer human. Deep. Rotten. Hungry. Open the door." Jake stumbled backward in horror as claws scraped violently against the wood. The entire door shook. He grabbed a chair and jammed it beneath the knob while the creature snarled outside like an animal. Then, just as suddenly as it began, silence returned. Jake didn't sleep for the rest of the night. At sunrise the town looked almost normal. Children rode bicycles down the street. Shopkeepers opened stores. People smiled politely like nothing had happened. Jake began interviewing locals, but everyone denied the creature existed. Some acted confused. Others became angry. One old man grabbed Jake's shirt and whispered, "If you want to survive, stop asking questions." That afternoon Jake visited the town library searching for historical records. Deep inside the basement archives he discovered newspaper clippings about dozens of disappearances dating back nearly 80 years. Tourists, travelers, hitchhikers, all vanished after entering Black Hollow. Then Jake found something worse. Every 20 years, exactly on the same date, multiple bodies were discovered mutilated near the forest. Tonight marked the 20th anniversary. A voice suddenly spoke behind him. You shouldn't read those. Jake turned to see a young woman standing in the shadows. She had dark hair, pale skin, and frightened eyes. My name's Elena, she said quietly. And if you stay here tonight, you'll die. Elena revealed the horrifying truth. Decades ago, Black Hollow was founded near an abandoned silver mine. One winter the miners became trapped underground after a cave-in. Food ran out. People turned desperate. According to legend, the miners made a deal with something living beneath the earth. They offered human lives in exchange for survival. The thing accepted. Since then, every 20 years it returned to feed. The townspeople cover it up, Elena explained. They sacrifice strangers to keep themselves alive. Jake felt sick. You actually believe that? Elena stared directly into his eyes. My father was sacrificed 20 years ago. Before Jake could respond, the library lights flickered violently. A loud siren echoed outside across the town. Elena's face went white. It's starting early. The streets erupted into chaos. People rushed indoors carrying weapons and supplies. Windows were boarded shut. Church bells rang non-stop. Dark storm clouds swallowed the sky even though it was only afternoon. Jake followed Elena to her house near the edge of town. Inside, the walls were covered with old maps and strange symbols. Elena explained her family had secretly studied the creature for generations searching for a way to kill it. It's not a ghost, she whispered. It's something older. She opened an ancient journal filled with sketches of monstrous figures. One drawing showed the hooded creature without its cloak. Jake nearly dropped the book. Its body looked twisted and skeletal with impossibly long limbs and a face stretched into a permanent scream. What is that thing? He asked. Elena swallowed hard. Its real name is the Hollon Man. Suddenly someone pounded on the front door. Elena, a male voice shouted. Town meeting. Now. Elena looked terrified. They know you're here. Jake and Elena secretly followed the townspeople to the church at the center of Black Hollow. Through a cracked window they watched dozens of residents gathered inside holding candles. At the altar stood Mayor Carter, an elderly man with cold eyes. Tonight the Hollow Man rises again, he announced. We must honor the agreement. Murmurs filled the church. Then the mayor spoke words that made Jake's blood freeze. The outsider will be offered before midnight. Elena grabbed Jake's arm. We need to leave now. But as they backed away from the church, a shotgun clicked behind them. Martha stood in the darkness pointing the weapon directly at Jake. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. We don't have a choice. Townspeople emerged from every direction surrounding them. Jake realized the horrifying truth. Everyone in Black Hollow was part of it. They tied Jake's hands and locked him inside an old jail cell beneath the church. Mayor Carter sat outside calmly cleaning a hunting knife. You people are insane, Jake shouted. The mayor sighed sadly. You think we wanted this? My grandfather tried fighting it once. A Hollow Man slaughtered half the town in one night. He looked up coldly. Sacrifice one stranger every 20 years, or lose everyone. Hours passed while thunder shook the church above. Jake desperately searched for escape. Then he heard whispering from the darkness behind his cell. Jake, he turned sharply. Ethan stood outside the bars. His dead brother looked exactly as he remembered. Ethan? Jake whispered. Ethan smiled sadly. It lies to everyone. It lied to me too. Jake stepped closer in disbelief. You're dead. No, Ethan replied softly. Not yet. Suddenly Ethan's face twisted unnaturally. Bones cracked beneath his skin. His mouth stretched open, impossibly wide, revealing rows of black teeth. Jake screamed and stumbled backward as the creature slammed against the bars, laughing horribly. Midnight comes. Above the church, people screamed. Gunshots exploded outside. The Hollow Man had arrived. Chaos erupted throughout the building. Jake heard doors breaking, glass shattering, and terrible inhuman shrieks. Blood sprayed beneath the jail door. Mayor Carter screamed for help before suddenly going silent. Then slow footsteps descended the stairs. Jake held his breath. The creature emerged from the darkness, towering beneath the flickering lights. Its hood slowly lifted, revealing hollow black eyes and a mouth split ear to ear. Your fear smells beautiful, it whispered. Jake backed against the wall, trembling. Then a shotgun blast exploded. Elena appeared behind the creature, firing repeatedly. The Hollow Man screeched as black blood splattered across the stones. Run! Elena screamed. Jake grabbed the keys from the dead mayor and escaped the cell. Together they fled through burning hallways while townspeople were slaughtered around them. The Hollow Man moved impossibly fast through the shadows, tearing victims apart like paper. Outside, Black Hollow had become a nightmare. Houses burned. People ran screaming through the streets. The creature hunted them one by one beneath the storm. Elena dragged Jake toward the forest. The mine, she shouted. That's where it came from. They reached the abandoned mine entrance hidden deep among the trees. Ancient symbols covered the rocks surrounding it. Inside, the tunnels descended endlessly into darkness. Jake could hear whispers echoing from below. Human whispers, hundreds of them. Elena explained the final truth as they descended deeper underground. The Hollow Man was once a miner named Elias Grieve. During the cave-in he convinced the trapped workers to perform a ritual promising salvation. Instead, something ancient possessed him. The miners survived by eating each other until rescuers arrived weeks later. But Elias emerged transformed into something no longer human. It feeds on guilt and fear, Elena said, and every sacrifice makes it stronger. Deep inside the mine they discovered a massive underground chamber filled with bones. Thousands of bones. In the center stood a black stone altar covered in dried blood. The whispers grew louder. Suddenly lanterns around the chamber ignited by themselves. The Hollow Man emerged behind them smiling. You came home, it hissed. Elena raised her shotgun but the creature snapped its fingers. Invisible force hurled her across the cave wall. Jake grabbed a pickaxe and swung wildly. The blade sliced through the creature's shoulder releasing thick black liquid. The Hollow Man barely reacted. Pain means nothing anymore, it whispered. Then it grabbed Jake by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Visions flooded Jake's mind. He saw the trapped miners murdering each other underground, saw children sacrificed over generations, saw the Hollow Man standing behind every death in Black Hollow for 80 years. Humans create monsters, the creature whispered. I merely feed. Jake noticed strange symbols glowing across the altar. Elena crawled toward him bleeding heavily. The altar binds it, she gasped. Destroy the altar. Jake grabbed a lantern and hurled it onto the black stone. Flames erupted instantly. The Hollow Man screamed in pure agony. The entire mine began shaking violently. Cracks spread across the ceiling. Rocks crashed down everywhere. The creature released Jake and staggered backward, shrieking as its body started splitting apart. Shadows poured from its skin like smoke. You cannot kill me, it roared. Jake seized the pickaxe and drove it directly into the altar. The stone exploded. A shockwave tore through the chamber. The Hollow Man let out one final scream so loud the entire mine collapsed. Jake grabbed Elena and ran as tunnels crumbled behind them. They barely escaped the mine before the mountain caved in completely. Silence finally returned to Black Hollow. Dawn slowly rose across the ruined town. Fires still burned among empty streets. Survivors wandered in shock. Martha sat outside the destroyed diner crying quietly. When she saw Jake alive, she whispered, "Is it over?" Jake looked toward the collapsed mountain. For the first time since arriving, the fog surrounding Black Hollow had disappeared. Weeks later, Jake published the story nationwide. Authorities investigated Black Hollow, uncovering decades of murders and disappearances. The town was abandoned soon afterward. Most survivors vanished without explanation. Elena disappeared too. Some claimed she moved overseas. Others believed she died in the mine collapse. Jake never learned the truth. But 6 months later, Jake received a package at his Chicago apartment with no return address. Inside was an old photograph taken in Black Hollow nearly a century earlier. The townspeople stood smiling beside the mine entrance, and hidden among them was Jake himself staring directly at the camera. On the back of the photo, written in fresh black ink, were 4 words: "You never really escape."